Hello Internet and welcome to a new series of videos. In this series I'll be going over how to use the various playable characters in Xenogears. I decided to start with ChuChu as she has many mechanics that are complicated, difficult to understand, and not explained at all in game. Overall, ChuChu isn't the most powerful character in the game. That said, she does have a unique trait which makes her worth using. Let's start with her gear form. The one main thing that makes ChuChu stand out from the rest of the playable characters is her ability to heal gears in combat. Unlike every other healing spell in the game removing defense debuffs, Forest Dance actually heals. This is a very valuable trait, and it makes her worth bringing to a lot of fights for this alone. Another unique trait, which is a pretty obvious one, is that ChuChu doesn't require fuel, as she is an organic being. Overall, this ability isn't that powerful. It does mean that she is immune to fuel drain, though other gears can get this immunity by equipping the tank guard. It does mean that she has increased sustainability, but overall this isn't too important. At the very least, it does pair nicely with her healing. The big downside of using ChuChu is that she does not have access to many of the features other gears do. Since she doesn't use fuel, she cannot boost, which is an incredibly powerful option to miss out on. However, by the end of the game, you can bypass this with speed shoes. This does lead into her other weakness, however. ChuChu cannot equip gear parts. This effectively means that ChuChu misses out on 3 accessory slots, as a normal character can use both their on-foot slots for items like Ether Doubler and Speed Shoes, as well as their gear slots for power magics. Finally, I'll show on screen right now the formula for calculating her stats in gear form. Overall, ChuChu's gear form is not very strong, but it does offer a powerful niche, that being the ability to heal gears in battle. Next up is how ChuChu works on foot. This is also where things get very complicated. ChuChu has 3 unique mechanics on foot, none of which are explained in-game. The first of these mechanics is her hidden stat buff. While on foot, ChuChu gets a flat 2x buff to her attack and ether stats when she attacks. This is obviously quite useful, but it also means that she can reach a higher attack cap than anyone else potentially. The normal maximum for anyone's stat is 200, but with this, ChuChu can actually reach an effective 400 base attack. This ability also buffs her ether by 2x, but only when she's attacking, so you don't get the doubled ether effect for healing. The next mechanic she has is critical hits. ChuChu is the only character in Xenogears to use critical hits. She has a 10% chance to get one, and when she does, her damage is increased by 50%. There are also a couple of accessories that buff this mechanic, but we'll go over them later. Finally comes ChuChu's most powerful and least documented mechanic, her horniness. There is a hidden modifier that ChuChu gets when Faye or Bart are in the party. Basically, if either of them are below half health, ChuChu gets a 50% strength buff. If either of them is below 25% health, she gets another 50%. This also stacks, meaning that if you have both Faye and Bart in the party, and both of them are below 25%, ChuChu will get an insane 200% attack boost, or 3 times. Next, let's go over her spell list. Forest Dance is a spell that costs 2 EP and restores HP to a single ally. As discussed earlier, it also has the hidden property of restoring HP to gears. I won't go into it any further, but this is the one thing that makes ChuChu worth using in a typical playthrough. Next up is Cullen Prayer and Murm Prayer. Each of them costs 2 EP and restores physical and mental ailments respectively. There's not too much to say about these spells, they're useful to have, but don't really make her worth adding to the party. Play Dead costs 2 EP and grants ChuChu the Play Dead condition. This is actually a pretty good spell. Play Dead means that you can only take the defend, use item, and ether commands. However, enemies will be unable to target you in battle. Outside of ChuChu, the only way to get this effect is through the Tragedy item, which can be found only in Big Joe's shop in the post-game, so it's basically an exclusive mechanic. Overall, this is actually a fairly powerful effect. It makes the healer role a lot easier to play, since ChuChu herself doesn't have to worry about getting hit and healing. Next up is Maiden Kiss. It costs 8 EP to revive an ally. It's a good spell and nice to have. Forest Wind is a 4 EP single target attack spell with the wind element. Similarly, Earth Gnome is a 6 EP earth element spell, hitting an area rather than a single target. Finally, ChuChu gets Ancient Myth. For 10 EP, you hit all enemies with non-elemental damage. These 3 spells are nice if you want to go for an ether build with ChuChu, which is made viable by the double ether buff while in battle. Combined with Play Dead making her untargetable, she actually isn't a bad option, though maybe a bit outclassed. With spells out of the way, all we have left to discuss is the best equipment for her. ChuChu's various abilities allow you to build her in a few different ways, though one of those doesn't become very viable until you pump her full of drive, but we'll get to that. The first build is her ether build. Put an ether doubler and a holy pendant on her and send her into combat. She'll be able to heal very effectively and dish out good ether damage. Since she can play dead, you don't need to worry about her defense either. This means that you can equip an accessory in the place of armor. A speed ring, or later speed shoes, are probably her best option here. The physical damage build isn't really worth doing, as you need a couple of equipments that are a pain to get. Those equipments being the Faye Jr. doll and the Bart Jr. doll. ChuChu has a base crit rate of 10%, but with the Faye Jr. doll this becomes 60%. The Bart Jr. doll increases her critical damage from 50% to 100%. Overall, with how much of a pain it is to get a hold of these, this build isn't really worth it. Besides, at that point in the game you'll have access to the next build, which is much more entertaining. This final build is insane. ChuChu's damage, if set up properly, surpasses any other character in the game. This is, in part, thanks to her horniness buffs, but also a few great equipments. The ChuChu idol found in Shavat buffs her attack and defense by 20% each, combined with the Power Crisis and Speed Shoes for free auto haste, and you've got an absolute monster on foot. It's a shame that this build is only really viable in the late game, but I'm gonna put a calculation on screen. With this properly set up, ChuChu reaches an insane 6,700 attack. Now unfortunately, the one thing shackling this bloodthirsty hamster is the damage cap, which is a very low 9,999. Even so, since this build is only on foot, we can stick to triangle attacks, meaning we get 7 attacks. Let's say we're in a hypothetical scenario where ChuChu can fight Deus on foot. In this scenario, ChuChu would deal an average of 6,250 damage per hit with her light attack. With 7 hits, that's a total of 43,750 damage, which is enough to 2-round the final boss. The maximum you could get in a single round would be 56,000 from 2 cross attacks in a single triangle, though this is a bit riskier. Now, unfortunately for ChuChu, there is no way to fight Deus on foot, and the damage cap is still there, but it's still fun to mess around with. She completely annihilates the dragons on Doom and Isle. Overall, for some serious advice, just go with Healer ChuChu. Being able to heal the gears in combat is very nice and allows for some serious sustainability. That's all for this episode. Next time I'll probably be covering Maria, so stick around. Thanks for watching and have a great day.